Roll for Crit is made possible thanks to the support of viewers like you and our patrons on our Patreon page.
You can become a patron for just $1 a month at patreon.com/rollforcrit. Roll for Crit is here with a preview for Reality Shift from Academy Games, which is on Kickstarter now. This is a virtual reality racing game. The game takes place on a map made up of three-dimensional cubes, each one with a different face, different sides, with different colors on them. And you are making your way across these paths with your individual racers, attempting to make it to the finish line first before you get taken out by one element of this shifting racetrack.
This chaotic race board is made up of multiple of these cubes, with a start and end point, which as you can guess is where you begin, and hopefully you'll make it to the end. The cubes will be set up in the beginning so there's one of each color showing, as well as white on the board, which will be wild for most things. And your goal, as we stated, is to get your racer to the finish line. Now, the way you'll be doing that is on your turn, you'll be rolling a die first. And that is the minimum amount you have to move in the direction you're facing. You can turn around, but that will cost a card. You will have multiple cards to play. These cards have two different options on them, but for now, let's look at the number at the top. This is the speed value you can add to your movement in order to get somewhere quicker. If you roll, for example, a low number, you can use a card to up the speed and space as you move. Now, one thing that should be mentioned is that your little piece is magnetized. So if a road happens to, let's say, head off the cube, you can go along the sides of the cube. This is important because, one, you may choose to veer off and use the sides in order to reach your goal. And two, those cubes will be moving. So you may be at top on first and then later on the side at the start of your next turn. Now, be careful though, if your light bike happens to get crushed and sandwiched between two cubes during a movement of some sort, your bike is destroyed. There is some good news. There is not player elimination. You're just on your turn, you're going to respawn at start, or if you're lucky enough, at one of these checkpoints. Throughout the game, on certain sides, there are these checkpoints that have a number on them. If you reach that spot, you can choose to claim that checkpoint. You will take the card of that number, and from now on, when you die, you get to spawn there, if you so choose. Once you claim it, you can't get another one, so you have to decide if that's the one you really want.
So during your turn, you can use the cards in your hand either to add extra speed to your bike, to rotate your bike 180 degrees, make a U-turn, so to speak, or you can use them to shift reality and affect the layout of the board itself. There are different types of movements that you can use on the different cubes, and each card also has a color that tells you which color facing cube you can affect. This refers to the face at the top of the cube currently, not any of its sides. So if it's showing the yellow side at the top, you will need a yellow card in order to affect that cube. The exception to this is if another player is on a cube matching their color. For example, if the yellow player were on that yellow face, even if you have a yellow card, you cannot affect it. They are safe in that instance. Depending on which card you are playing, you might simply be sliding a cube up, down, or to the left or right. You could rotate the cube, so move it in a certain direction so that the pathway on the top is now leading from somewhere else or to somewhere else. You can flip the cube either 90 degrees or 180 degrees to a different side. So a completely different side will now be showing at the top as well as showing from the sides, depending on how or where that cube is positioned. Or you can tilt the cube, which involves actually rotating it fully alongside the edge of a cube that it's next to until it comes to a stop somewhere new. This means that a cube could actually be on top of another cube. They could be stacked up at a certain point, and you could be on top of a tower of cubes, so to speak. In fact, the finish line for the race could be turned upside down and made inaccessible. That's something else that could happen. Only other restrictions you need to worry about are that you cannot shift a cube if it has another cube on top of it, or if it is surrounded on all four sides by other cubes.
We've seen plenty of racing games, and I think we've also seen plenty of games when you can manipulate the movement of the board or the paths by swapping tiles, but the 3D nature of this, of rotating and moving things on top and below to change the racetrack, I think is much cooler and a lot of fun, and it makes it stand out from the rest of them. Obviously, the theme is fun if you are nostalgic at all for the Tron movies. In fact, I'm pretty sure they said that when they first announced this game. But I think it was really, when we tried it out, it was really interesting to be like, oh, okay, I guess I'll now rotate this up here. And at first you're like, oh, they blocked. Oh, wait, I can go. You start like looking sideways along the board, You're trying to see if you can go around the outer edge or something.
Right. It's like moving from, Excite Bike up to F-Zero. You're going from a 2D space to a 3D space. And there is a little bit of an adjustment period where you have to reconfigure your brain that, oh, I now need to be looking at all around this board. We have prototype components, but the version we have came with a little board that the cubes can sit on, so that you can have like almost like a lazy Susan, so you can rotate the thing around and be able to see, okay, I need to know what's going on where. You're not allowed to look at faces that are not accessible, that are like being hidden. So could be a slight memory element or even a bit of chance sometimes, where if you rotate a cube a certain way because maybe you're looking for a certain color or looking for a certain path that you're trying to find, and it may end up hurting you accidentally or helping one of your opponents. So you may want to play it safe and only affect cubes you're sure will help you at the right time. And of course, that depends on which cards you have in hand and how that's going to work. And also, those white faces, as we said, are wild, so you can use any color from your hand to affect them. So those can be pretty important. And that's a big part of it, is at the end of your turn, making sure you're going to be safe and being aware that when it's not your turn, another player might come along and either affect the cube you're on or a cube next to you, and they could crush you and you could die.
That's why those checkpoints are important, but also I love the fact that it's almost sort of everyone has their own power just on color. Like, you don't have to worry about, oh, Jonathan's character can move 2 extra spaces or discards to draw another thing. It's simply, he likes the red spaces because he's the red bike. I like yellow spaces because I like the yellow bike. And then because of that, too, you're like, I could move extra, but if I stop on this yellow space, that'll give me some breather. And then if I roll high next turn and play this boost, I'll just shoot ahead. So I think that was a clever but simple solution to giving each player their own little strategies.
Yeah, and it's really, because the board is relatively small, being eliminated obviously is a negative, but you almost expect that to happen a lot, and you will materialize immediately at the start of your next turn. There's no penalty other than being moved backwards, and depending on what you roll and what's in your hand, you might be able to get ahead pretty quickly. So this is a game that can seem very simple at first, and at its heart it is pretty simple. Point A to point B, that's all there is. But someone might be hiding that finish line face, so it's inaccessible early on, and you might not remember where it is anymore after a while. There could be cubes shifting around, and depending on where your checkpoint is, your checkpoint could move. So at one time, maybe it was very, very accessible and helpful for you, and now it's all the way back by the start space, and it's useless to you. So it has a very chaotic feel, but it's all player controlled. That chaos only comes from each other, and maybe a little bit from the die roll, but there aren't any random events or anything. So I think it's a nice balance in that way.
Indeed. I mean, you're going to probably be stacking cards and trying to save them, manipulate them so that if the finish line is hidden, maybe on your turn, you'll play it in order to trigger it to reveal itself while you're within shooting distance. Overall, if you're tired of racing games because either the track always stays the same or you think that just swapping 2 tiles isn't enough, I think this is one you should take a look at. Yes, it is still that simple racing of point A to B, but that 3D aspect of rotating the cubes around each other and being able to not just be on the top but the sides and hiding the finish line somehow, I think adds that extra little bit of spice that I would like to see.
Yeah, it is a very, very unique setup for a game. The fact that your pieces are magnetized and you're going around the board in a 3D space, very different from other games that we've seen in this genre. And if you're a Tron fan, something you'll probably want to take a look at because, there's a couple similar kinds of games out there, but this might be the next best thing to an official Tron racing game that we have right now. You can take a look for yourself at the Kickstarter, which we will have a link for in the description below. You can see the finalized components there, as well as there are some additional cubes with special features that will alter the gameplay that we didn't get the chance to try out ourselves, but you can go there and see exactly how all that's going to work.
And of course, let us know if you're backing this project in those comments down below. But until then, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
And this has been a Roll for Crit preview. If you want to help out, you can check out our Patreon, or a simple click to like and subscribe can go a long way.
We really appreciate everything that you can do for us. We love you.